Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back with another video from Totally Not Mark, and today we're checking out his review of the Granolah arc from Dragon Ball Super. Now, I quite liked the Granolah arc. There were some moments where I was a bit like, like the Bardock wish. It was cool to see Bardock again. I think everyone who is a Dragon Ball Z fan, loves Bardock, so seeing Bardock again was cool, but the wish thing, I was a bit like, ugh, and the moment with Frieza at the end was just like, what's going to happen next? Let's see what Mark thought of the arc, shall we? Hey, let's see what Mark thought of the arc. Rhymes. Anyway.
I think I am more excited for this Dragon Ball Super review than I have been for any of the other ones I've made in the past. And it has a lot to do with the content of what I'll be covering
Cool
in
character
this
design
today, but also in part due to this quote from the artist behind Dragon Ball Super, Toyotaro, following the release of Dragon Ball Super Volume 18. In that, he said, "Thanks to all of you, we made it to Volume 18. Going by mere volume count alone, we made it to the same number as Dr. Stone. It was at this point that Toriyama-sensei started Dragon Ball, meaning that I am also finally at the starting line. I can't use lack of experience as an excuse anymore. I will do my best." That is an impressive statement of humility and a demonstration of his own determination to get better. And I honestly respect it. It's been about 2 years since I last reviewed a story from Dragon Ball Super, and
God, it's been that long.
This latest one, the Granolah arc, it highlights something I love about modern Dragon Ball, perhaps more than any other arc that's come before it. I've tried to remain as objective as I can in this review.
It's nice to see some interesting characters be brought in as well.
Some creative choices made in this latest arc. I must say that the themes explored are interesting, and it boasts one of, if not the best first act to an arc I've yet seen produced by modern Dragon Ball. I hope you're all sitting comfortably because we're about to dive back into the expressive, impressive, and wonderful world of Dragon. I'm Totally Not Mark, and this is my review for the Granolah arc. It's Granolah in the morning. It's Granolah in the night.
Alright.
It's Granolah with You know what's weird? Having just recently read through
Bleach and that.
500 chapters of Bleach, to hop on for a review of a Dragon Ball Super arc that's 20 chapters long was a really weird experience. It was like I had been away training in the gravity chamber, and then all of a sudden
you just speed
my body
it.
feels normal again. Having ran from December of 2020 to August of 2022, the Granolah arc is the first arc of Dragon Ball Super that I decided to read in chunks rather than month to month. And honestly, I think it works better that way.
It does.
The full month between chapters.
It does. I like binge reading this.
Already commenced fights can get tiring, and I'm gonna be honest, with the amount of reading I have to do week to week for other stories, it didn't give me enough with any given month oftentimes to keep my attention. So instead of that, I decided to wait a few months, read a bunch, and progress that way. So the first time I finished reading this manga happened to be this week, right before writing this video. And man, some stuff happens in this arc.
Some stuff does happen.
I was singing the praises of the Moro arc, and one of the reasons I was so impressed with that arc was largely due to what it stood not only to offer itself, but additionally what it offered to everything that came afterwards. This arc gets to explore the consequences and ramifications of the previous in ways I, as a longtime reader, thoroughly enjoyed. So, let's take a look at the first act of the story that I loved so much.
This is a good song.
The introduction. The introduction of any story is largely the section that's used to establish what makes the arc tick, bringing to the forefront the goals, themes, and calls to action for the main players. And boy, does it do just that. Chapter 67 largely contends with the conclusion and aftermath of the Moro arc, Goku and the gang getting recognized for their efforts by the Galactic Patrol, and interestingly, 7-3 being taken away by a minion of someone called Master Goichi right before Jaco and the Galactic Patrol could confirm 7-3's death. And it's in this ship we meet the titular character of the arc, Granolah. He's a bounty hunter, and armed with his AI companion Oatmeal, together they infiltrate Master Goichi's ship and retrieve 7-3 for delivery to their own employer. As first glimpses go, I was a very big fan of how this arc chose to kick things off, and more specifically, how it chose to go about communicating who Granolah was to us as a character. Naturally, exposition can be a complicated and nuanced field to navigate, and it can be boring, cringe, or awkward if you do it the wrong way. However, I thought this was
too much setup is
superb. Firstly, by connecting the prior story to this one, in the same chapter the other story ended, it allows us as viewers the chance to arm ourselves with more context and anticipation. We already know that 7-3 is valuable, and so we don't need to have that explained to us why he might be a target for Granolah. Furthermore, if you revisit this section of the story, you might be amazed to notice just how little talking there is.
Yeah, not much dialogue at all. Yeah, which is a change.
There's a battle demonstrating what Granolah can do, what his objective is, and how he goes about it. It shows us his relationship with his AI, how Oatmeal is genuinely more than just a robot, but an entity that cares for Granolah's safety.
Friends.
And most vitally to this story, it depicts a short but illuminating flashback from the point of view of someone we believe to be Granolah, cowering from an invading, destructive force. The Saiyans.
Yo.
The vast majority of this is conveyed to us without words, and it's a delight to revisit. Offering alongside this terrific pacing the chance for the more eagle-eyed amongst you to notice a very specific scarring on this Ozaru's left cheek. Already I'm hooked and have so many questions.
Yeah.
This is exactly how
that's what I'm saying. Everyone loves Bardock.
Granolah arc to commence, fueling our engagement with the story's plot with nostalgic imagery and connecting us specifically with its titular character. It's a terrific opening, and the first act hasn't even begun to show us how brilliant it is yet. Because, oh boy, we got a continuation of Vegeta and Goku's emotional journeys in this arc.
Oh, we do.
One of my many praisings of the Moro arc concerned its dedication to progressing Vegeta's story in a meaningful fashion.
That was cool with the Namekians, yeah.
Been explored once in Dragon Ball Z and rehashed once again in Dragon Ball Super. I've made it clear in the past my disdain for the vapid repurposing of already resolved plotlines for the sake of fake tension. Whether it be Vegeta's sudden regression in Battle of Gods from the way that he was in the Buu Saga, his reluctance to work together with Goku during the Goku Black arc despite the horrific circumstances, or the revisiting of a popular set piece in a much less engaging way during the Universe Survival arc, a la Vegeta's Sacrifice. However, what Moro started with Vegeta's admission of guilt concerning his past transgressions on Namek, and what Granolah continues concerning both Goku and Vegeta's journeys, has been by far the most engaging part of the modern Dragon Ball story for me. But I'm dancing around this a little bit. What exactly is done for both of these characters in this arc? Well, a concept this arc plays with in its beginning is that of taking both Goku and Vegeta down two separate paths,
which was cool. It's like,
Whis continues Goku's training,
the Ultra Instinct,
God
of Destruction. Yeah, I love that. It's like, right, they're doing their own thing now.
Explored and presented in a host of different but interesting ways. One of my favorites is how the manga visually demonstrates this idea. It's as wonderful as it is subtly executed. I pointed this out on my Twitter at ToyNotMark when it was first released, but if you pay attention to the speech bubbles Toyotaro uses in this chapter, chapter 68, as well as the direction of the story, you can actually predict what might happen. You can see the similarities Goku shares with Whis through their shared, more rounded and soft speech bubbles, and the more harsh and angular speech boxes shared by Vegeta and Beerus, highlighting in one breath that Vegeta would be ill-served as a student of Whis, sort of like...
Right, so their speech bubbles match up, theirs match up. Okay, that's interesting.
More aligned with what Beerus has found success with, destruction. Also, there's a moment during Whis' training in chapter 68 I'd love to draw your attention to. It's the first scene Goku and Vegeta share in the arc, and in it, Whis says something rather interesting while training Goku's Ultra Instinct. He says, "Copying me won't get you far. You
your own style, yeah.
Develop your own style. The ability to use Ultra Instinct is not, in and of itself, your ultimate goal." I particularly love this lesson for Goku. Throughout Dragon Ball, his aptitude for tutelage and mimicking maneuvers has been a cornerstone of his own physical development and progression. He's always been great at that. And to see
make it his own. He's got to make it his own.
Was honestly refreshing. This arc explores what specifically are the differences between Goku and Vegeta, highlights their strengths and weaknesses, pushes them in opposite directions, and in the process unites them by having them embrace the good about who they are as members of the same species, expressing the lesson that our histories don't define and shouldn't define who we are. Only we have the power to define our destiny. And that's sort of what Granolah's arc in this story is.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of the hatred he has in the past in order to learn how to embrace what he has now to look forward to the future. But I am getting a little ahead of myself. So let's talk about the villains of this arc.
Hell yeah.
The main
So interesting.
force and villain faction of the arc are the individuals known as the Heaters. As the direct
Heaters.
opposition that rose up in the vacuum following Frieza's demise, I like that the word used to describe them is that of the Heaters. A direct opposite to Frieza, literally and figuratively, which is reflected in their philosophy. Where Frieza wanted to squash the insects directly before him, the Heaters are a much more passive force, operating with and utilizing intel and money to crush what stands before them indirectly. confronting the problem here head-on that's emerging with Granolah growing incredibly strong, instead, Alec, the leader, proposes a plan by which he wants to get Frieza to kill Granolah for them, which ultimately doesn't end up too well, but that's skipping to the end.
Yeah,
now,
that's going a bit far.
This is one of the less appreciated ideas that came out of this arc. How the Heaters, or more specifically Alec, is the inverse of Frieza in many respects. During the Namek saga, because of Frieza's immense pressure and will, Vegeta, Krillin, Gohan, and even Goku to some extent were forced to strategize and navigate the tough ecosystem.
Yeah, it was so cool. I loved it.
Dragon Balls on Namek at that time. It's one of my favorite parts of that story for that very reason. However, with regards to the Heaters in this arc, instead of the gang being required to carefully navigate their way around Alec's attention, he uses his anonymity to his own advantage. Choosing instead of contending with them themselves, he instead implements strategies of his own.
Get people to fight each other.
Manipulating others to confront each other. Succeeding in doing so with Granolah only because of his lust for revenge, blinding him to what's truly going on. With Oatmeal being the only voice of reason here to help guide the bounty hunter. The symbolism of Oatmeal being a mechanical eye that's trying to help Granolah see his own situation for what it is, being a nice touch, I think. Furthermore, there's a great quote from Alec during chapter 70 that illuminates for us exactly the sort of person he is. When asked if he was considering Granolah's request for info on Frieza, he said he wouldn't tell him where he is because, and I quote, "If Granolah takes Frieza out, he'll just take his place as the next big boss. And that throne belongs to us, the Heaters." I like this comment from the leader of the Heaters, Alec, because it shares information about the plot while also telling us some vitally important and almost prophetic information about Alec and where his weaknesses ultimately lie. He's never going to be the sort of person who would trust anyone or do anything for anyone other than himself. It's his belief that everyone is as selfish as he is, which explains why he acts and makes decisions the way he does, both now at the beginning of this arc and tragically at the very end. With the chapter culminating on a foreboding vision from the Oracle Fish predicting that the strongest in the universe will soon rise up. Is it a misleading or direct prophecy? Who knows, but the pieces are most definitely falling into place for this arc to work right now. However, the best part of this chapter, chapter 69, comes shortly after, and it's very easy to miss if you're not paying attention. In fact, it takes place between 2 pages, specifically these two, pages 8 and 9. I'm sure many of you watching understand what a transition is. Oftentimes, it's a standard method of cutting from one scene to another. However, to some authors or directors, it can be a useful mechanism to do exactly that, while also communicating something more narratively. Granolah, as he's walking back to his home to greet Minaito, is seen looking down at his ruined one-time home. It communicates not only a desire for revenge that Granolah has, but also something that keeps his focus on what was, rather than what could be. Still holding on to the past despite the pain it causes him. But where's the transition, you might be asking? Well, we get a series of shots depicting Granolah's memory of the event.
How it happens,
Uzaru's destroying the world left and right, creating the perfect opportunity to switch to a Saiyan talking about
destruction.
Still haunted by the guilt of those very events his people took part in and wrought on the universe. While the visual transition from Uzaru to Vegeta is obvious, but it's also the psychological similarities that these 2 pages and characters, Vegeta and Granolah, share side by side as alluded to here. Another aspect I love about this arc is the level of care that's gone into the interpersonal interactions between Whis and Goku, in contrast with Beerus and Vegeta. I mentioned the differences in temperament, which was highlighted through the speech bubbles. However, it extends beyond that, and all the way to the means with which they teach and how they fight one another. Whis calmly conveying his philosophy to Goku, encouraging him to embrace his own style and follow his own path to Ultra Instinct Mastery, focusing entirely on dodges and evasive maneuvers. All the while, Beerus bluntly tells Vegeta exactly what his problems are, grinds his face into the dust, and antagonizes him relentlessly with quips about how he was the one who gave Frieza the order to blow up planet Vegeta. I love stuff like this. It gives each encounter its very own flavor without sacrificing the entertainment.
Actually telling him is just like, oh, whoa.
Represents what Toyotaro and Toriyama want for these characters. For them to no longer directly chase one another, with one always being left out in the dust, but to instead explore their differences and find new paths to their respective destinations that way. With Beerus' final emphatic philosophical message to Vegeta found through a phrase he's used before in this series: before creation comes destruction. In order for Vegeta to achieve what he desires, in this instance, the power of a destroyer, he must recreate himself from scratch. Free from the guilty shackles he self-imposes unto himself due to his and his race's past. Now, this isn't to say, however, that this arc doesn't have some lazy instances of writing either, though. While the interpersonal journeys of these characters have been given a lot of consideration, there are sometimes pivotal pieces of exposition which get dropped at the most convenient of times, without which the plot simply couldn't work, which I honestly think is a problem. One of the reasons that I like the progression of the stories explored through Goku, Vegeta, and Granolah in this arc largely has to do with them being natural continuations of their existing characters' history. Why did I like the connective tissue between the last arc and this one? Well, because the story flowed naturally. 7-3 was kidnapped, Granolah stole it, which makes sense, gave him to the Heaters for payment, which makes sense, and through 7-3, the Heaters learned about the Dragon Balls, thus setting up one side of the conflict in the story. That's great, and it makes logical sense. There's a natural line of cause and effect one could easily follow and believe. However, the same does not occur with Granolah's storyline, unfortunately, in one small instance. We learned that Minato is holding onto one of the 2 Dragon Balls on that world, and so Granolah has no means of searching for it without a great deal of effort until moments later he hears a news report saying that someone found it right after Minato told him not to go looking for it. Like, okay?
Yeah.
What are the odds that there is no one needs it?
So out of nowhere, isn't it? But okay, let's get the ball rolling.
I can appreciate that they didn't want to spend a lot of time locating the ball and all that kind of stuff, and just get to the wish part. But then come up with a different way of achieving this.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But yeah, they definitely just wanted to keep it going.
And it's a shame because this one is honestly better than that. Following this, Granolah makes the decision to follow the path of revenge, sacrificing his very life force in the name of achieving the power he requires to reach his violent goals. And look, I'm going to spoil it here, Vegeta and Granolah fight each other later in this arc. Now, I don't think that's much of a surprise to anyone, or at least it shouldn't be. First of all, you should have read the arc before watching
this, yeah.
But it should also be obvious narratively. While in the previous chapter their similarities were highlighted, chapter 70 focuses on
they have to fight each other with the way they're both conflicted in like their thoughts and that.
To achieve his goal. Highlighted as he fails to destroy the rock on his hand, but does later succeed in destroying a tiny pebble on his finger, showing us as viewers that he is willing to patiently apply himself to achieve this goal, finding the process itself fulfilling.
Well, he did the whole training on Yard Rat, didn't he, as well?
Blows up a massive boulder with ease following his wish. Pleased with the results, but still unfulfilled, looking to enact his revenge. And after getting intel from Zuno, Maki and Oil, the other Heaters, leverage Goku and Vegeta's weakness, their wives, which honestly is kind of hilarious, to make contact with them and ultimately to deliver them to Granolah. Granolah is made aware of what's going on and eagerly accepts the mission he's given, knowing it will bring him closer to the revenge he desires. All the characters here have received the proper setup for their respective arcs in the story, and in addition to that have accepted their calls to action. Goku and Vegeta are going to investigate a supposed villain in a distant world, and Granolah is going to confront the people that he blames for destroying his world. This concludes the introductory portion of the first act of the story, and overall, as an introductory portion or first act of the story, this is a brilliant, near perfect release of Toyotaro. One that establishes the themes of the arc, the general direction of the course of the characters, and most importantly, I think, makes full use of the 45 pages a monthly release affords. I've argued the pros of a weekly release in the past or a bi-weekly release, but in this instance, it's a terrific benefit to the story given that there was so much to communicate in these chapters. Can they keep it up? Well, let's see. Goku and Vegeta versus Granolah. This section is interesting to me because unlike many other physical engagements these two get in, Goku isn't the star but instead the supporting character. And while he himself has a journey to undergo in this story, this section in particular is Vegeta and Granolah's.
Yeah, there does seem more focus on Vegeta and I quite like that.
Vegeta and Granolah's story. So, let's talk about it. Granolah seems to exhibit techniques synonymous with that of what Goku and Vegeta are specifically training for, making him in one breath the thematic inverse of hard work pays off, while additionally being the perfect individual for them to work together to overcome. However, as Vegeta says, following Goku's questioning whether or not they ought to try working together, he says that's absurd, pushing instead for Goku to try his hand at Granolah first. Already this feels strange because normally Vegeta's the one eager to get in first, and Goku cleans up his scraps afterwards. However, what first seems like a desire to surpass Kakarot yet again, as time passes we see glimpses that it might be a little more complicated than that. With Vegeta, unlike Granolah, which is important, thinking about this situation critically, not convinced the circumstances are as simple as they've been told they were, wishing to keep his eyes peeled for more information as Goku confronts Granolah directly. Now, Goku versus Granolah has some nice paneling here and there with pages 15 and 16 on chapter 73 being some standout favourites of
Looks
mine.
great.
Narratively, this chapter is quite light, with a large focus on the action element of the story, despite
Which is
very
cool.
little action
Needs to happen
being said in the
sometimes.
process.
It's a
Now,
shonen.
to be clear, there is some information to be understood from this chapter. However, when you compare it to the other more narratively dense chapters we've gotten moments prior, it's easy to see why there is a population of people who dislike how Super's manga uses its fights. Action is great, but we want action that tells and contributes largely
to the story.
too, not one that prevents or gets in the way of it. And while this one does tell some story, the issue is that there's not really enough story in this one chapter to satiate the appetite of some readers for an entire month, which is a shame because Toriyama and Toyotaro are clearly capable of delivering plenty of story as made evident by the other chapters in this arc. They fight back and forth as Goku cycles through Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue, and eventually Ultra Instinct. Now Goku and Vegeta do suss out what's going on, and
all this
Goku
stuff will look
gets
so
taken
good
by
animated,
Granolah,
like.
now fighting with a much higher level of power. And while that last chapter was very light on plot,
That
one
looks
thing
brutal.
I will say is that I did very much like the inclusion of the Shigarians' point of view both in that chapter and this one, chapter 74. Terrified that their world will come crumbling down around them, Granolah wouldn't have wished any harm on these people initially, but his lack of consideration for anything outside of his one goal, with his
He's
mind
blinded,
so focused,
yeah.
so consumed with revenge on his past, it's clear that he can't see the potential suffering and damage he's causing to those living in the here and now present day. And furthermore, this is where the differences between Vegeta and Granolah paid dividends for the Saiyan Prince. I mentioned how Vegeta was content with slowly seeing progression to bigger and better things with regards to his own training. And because of this, Vegeta is able to expose Granolah's naivety in battle both strategically and physically. He says, "Need I repeat myself? You may be stronger, but that's no guarantee that I'll lose to you." This is
Damn.
reflected in Whis'
Oh, elbows to the leg.
wherein he mentions that Goku's failing is in his understanding of Ultra Instinct as a transformation, when it's not at all that, but more so an augmentation of their powers. This idea of experience and ability divorced from power is something I've been interested in seeing explored again in Dragon Ball. It's always a treat. Continuing into chapter 75, Vegeta begins
so
to demonstrate his
cool.
commitment and embraces the
A
philosophy
new transformation.
by saying, "A god of destruction told me that power derived solely from instinct is unbounded." This notion that accepting who you are and embracing what makes Vegeta who he is doesn't have to be something one should feel guilty about. We are who we are regardless of what we've done, and certainly regardless of what our parents and race have done collectively. And what's really important is what we choose to do with that power or ability. And so, by embracing his body's natural aptitude for fighting and combat in conjunction with his newly acquired God of Destruction abilities, it leads to this chaotic force that surges in power the more he experiences battle. And I think that's a really cool idea for Vegeta, with this very idea of self-actualization demonstrated in chapter 75 too, by Vegeta saying, and I quote, "I am the master of my own fate." This is a statement that echoes throughout the themes of this fight between Granolah and Vegeta, with Vegeta himself using this philosophy to reach Granolah because he sees so much of himself in him. I mentioned earlier that one of my pet peeves for the Dragon Ball Super anime was its consistent application, or rehashing perhaps is a better word, of prior successful story beats for the sake of garnering fake tension. We saw it with the likes of Piccolo sacrificing himself to save Gohan. We saw it with Vegeta replicating his sacrifice during the Tournament of Power. You get the picture. However, I think in chapter 75, there's perhaps the most appropriate callback to an older scene that's ever been implemented in modern Dragon Ball. I might be mistaken, but I think this could very well be the case. And it takes place on pages 36 and 37 of chapter 75.
Okay.
In it, we see Vegeta perplexed. Seeing Granolah standing, he says, "Curse him. Still standing and ready to fight? I'll have to end this now. This will destroy anything it touches. Want to protect your precious planet? Then you'd better stop this yourself." Now, does this remind anyone watching of any other scene in this series? How about Vegeta's
Versus
very first
Goku,
fight
yeah.
in all of Dragon Ball against Goku in the Saiyan arc? I thought this was a really cool idea.
I never
It's
even
evident
clocked
from
onto
later
that. Yeah, that is the thing
conversations
when he's doing the beam. It's like, if you don't stop
Vegeta
this,
himself is
everything will be
and
destroyed.
trying on some level to reach Granolah. And the fashion with which Toyotaro demonstrates this is great. There are numerous points in this battle where Granolah starts to destroy things that are important to him. From some stray shots to his ruined home, to full-on destroying the area himself. The chaos he's bringing to the Shigarians and reside on this planet, and of course course, the sudden realization that he himself is being seen as the monster he's trying to supposedly get justice against. In the context of Dragon Ball Z, Vegeta is shouting these statements to Goku, not to draw anything out of him, but to only boast and try to destroy the Earth. In recreating this moment, in this scene, it intentionally tries to place our minds back to that headspace. However, as this conflict between Vegeta and Granolah comes to an end, with the utilization of this scene highlighting and contrasting for me the stark differences that exist between who Vegeta was during his battle with Goku on Earth and who he is now. Someone who will actively take the time to try to explain to an enemy that's trying to kill him what he feels like he needs to know. For Vegeta has once been consumed by hatred and revenge, and more than anyone else, knows the path that leads down.
Yeah.
It's wonderfully handled, and the structure of this arc...
That's cool, yeah, I like that, yeah. Oh,
the
chills.
flashback storyline, which occurs right about now and continues to appear thereafter, serves as both the lessons and closure the arc's emotional threads require. As such, it is drip-fed throughout the present-day series of events and fights that take place right up until, well, the climax. It works extremely well for a story in terms of structure, but not so well for a review. Jumping back and forth between two different points in time and scenes only will get confusing quickly and would really only work if I was looking to recap the story, and I have no interest in doing that. So I absolutely intend to talk about Bardock a little later on, but for the sake of brevity, let's chat about the events that make up the first conflict in this arc between the heroes and villains of this story. Gas versus the heroes, round one. There's a lot of fighting in this arc, but honestly, a lot less than I
Yeah, his ability to create weapons was interesting.
The criticism I felt from one side of the aisle when I was working up to review this story was that there was too much fighting, and while I feel like that wasn't the case during my binge of the material, I think I know where that sentiment might be coming from. Unlike the last arc, which had so many more individual fights, this arc has three main conflicts. The first we have already touched on between the main three heroes of this arc. However, thanks to some illuminating information from Minato, Vegeta, and Goku, Granolah has discovered the truth behind the futility of his initial revenge, and as such switches gears to help Goku and Vegeta against Gas. This is the second fight, with the third and final fight coming shortly after a brief reprieve from the fight to learn more about himself and Goku's father. All of these fights contribute in some small way to the themes and story of the arc. However, the issue I think some people see is that the fighting, while it has some substance, it's not enough to justify a month-long
yeah, it's like when you're waiting that long for it, it's like,
a lot of people, but
because then you gotta wait another month for it.
To little story progression, I can well imagine is frustrating for others. This is why I singled out and praised the first 4 or 5 chapters for being so dense and earning that monthly release. I think monthly releases can work, you just need to release an adequate amount of story progression to justify it. Keeping that
I think that's where the Boruto manga falls flat
sometimes.
sometimes.
Interesting elements that this arc plays with. Progression through struggle is another of Dragon Ball's core tenets that's reinforced during this story. Not just with the obvious Goku and Vegeta contenders, but through the likes of Granolah, as made obvious by his quick progression into unlocking his race's secret second red eye through combat despite already wishing to be the strongest. However, it's what we get with Gas that's interesting. In response to Elec saying he'll make his wish for Gas, Gas says, "I'm fine as I am," suggesting that he doesn't need a power-up from the Dragon Balls.
Coach, I'm me. Why would I want to be anything else?
I'm not sure you realize how psychologically healthy that actually is.
This is the universe of Goku and Vegeta's philosophy.
Brilliant.
While Gas doesn't seem to
And I show you
Elec
psychologically
is forcing this regression onto him until finally he forces Gas to release his inner nature, losing all control and becoming a hulking monster for a time before eventually regaining his sense of self. Honestly, the Heaters, and more specifically Elec here, is a very refreshing and interesting counter-philosophy to everything the hero characters are trying to learn, where they are doing everything themselves due to that yielding the best self-improvement outcome. Elec consistently looks for others to do his dirty work. Where they
like he's not willing to make the wish for himself. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I'll wish for you to be the strongest.
He's all about the results, forcing his own brother to do things he otherwise doesn't want to do. And okay, this section is wild, with the beginning of chapter 81 being especially brutal to say the least. Goku and Vegeta face to the floor. Granolah, for his troubles, receives 2 broken arms, his eyes gashed, and a torso shot through.
Gonna need a sensu for that one.
Some of this is difficult to look at. Additionally, there's a great sequence where Goku flexes his use and experience with instant transmission.
Definitely gonna need a sensu.
With one requested power boost from Vegeta, leading Goku and Whis to have this specific conversation. When asked how his training has been going, Goku responds, "Honestly, I'm still having a lot of trouble with it. I just can't keep my heart calm the way you do, Whis." To which he responds, well, that's understandable. As an angel, I'm a fundamentally different life form than you. Ooh, foreshadowing. Following this, Goku is given his father's old scouter by Minato, and contained within
Away we
is an
go.
audio log. And what's a nice touch is that as soon as this audio log utters a word or phrase that resonates with Goku, it reminds him of a long-lost memory. It's a beautiful moment for the character, and one that is unique in the franchise. And I think what is interesting about this is that Goku isn't necessarily resistant to the idea of embracing his Saiyan heritage or personhood. There aren't too many instances in the series where Goku is confronted by his past. You've got his brother, a few conversations with Vegeta, and maybe Frieza. That's it, really. This is the most direct involvement Goku has had with his past, and that in and of itself, I think,
that's true, yeah.
Interesting because he's never struck me as a character that actively hid away from his Saiyan lineage. His conversations with Raditz and Vegeta concerning the subject felt more like he was alluding to their morality as individuals rather than their race specifically being dubious. And these are conversations that occurred right at the beginning of Z. So we're talking about subject matter really which has had seeds planted for well over 30 years. It's captivating.
That's mental.
I want to say from the outset that the fact this story is confined entirely within the memories of Goku, Granolah, Minato, and a single scouter is not only a cool idea, but also a surprisingly resonant one. And it's a tale that serves this story perfectly well. I think it delivers some interesting action, wonderful lessons for Goku and Granolah, and is delivered in the story in a host of creative ways, with none quite as engaging to me as the moment Bardock's scouter is handed to his only surviving son, Goku. It held my attention and honestly gripped me as a fan of the series, with it triggering one of Goku's only memories of his father.
It's really cool that they did that, yeah, that's awesome.
Will more than likely be a pivotal moment for that iconic character moving forward. Earlier in the year, I made a video dedicated to the issues, or should I say, the potential implications this story might have for the greater Dragon Ball story. And my concerns with regards to that are largely unchanged. As an older Dragon Ball fan, when I was growing up, I perhaps wrongly had a preconceived notion as to what I thought Goku's backstory was, with non-canon TV specials coloring my mind for certain. However, my issue, and I think many folks' issues with the new Bardock story, is more so how derivative it feels to that of the Superman story, which to us felt a lot less interesting compared to what we had been suggested in the past by admittedly non-canon material. With that said, I'm happy to move past that and accept Bardock and Goku's newly revealed origin for what it is. It is, after all, Akira Toriyama's story, and he has every right to do with it.
Yes, he does.
It's his series.
It's his.
So, what happens in these flashbacks? Well, there are a host of flashbacks to the same pivotal event in Granolah's childhood, the day the Saiyans invaded to destroy his home. The fallout following these flashbacks, each one granting more and more information that broadens the scope and implications of the plot, I think serve the thematic resonance of the story really well. Although I do have one significant hiccup, which, while it still has the potential of being explained away later, hasn't as of right now, and due to that runs the risk of flying in the face of one of the story's themes. With that said, I think it sets up potential new stories for the coming arcs to explore in good detail, and I think it's genuinely heartwarming and great to see Goku finally learn something about his past. All of that, honestly, I think is terrific.
Looks so
With
cool.
regards to Bardock's involvement in this
so
arc,
cool.
while there's an aspect to it I didn't like, I will say that there is more than one layer to it to appreciate, with each layer offering something to enjoy. So let's explore the other layers before getting to my concern. Layer 1. The most obvious and surface level observations I can make regarding this are all positive. It's a refreshing reprieve from the typical fare we've grown accustomed to with regards to Dragon Ball. Getting to see Bardock and the Saiyans in their heyday is such an interesting and
It is very
rare
interesting to see that, like, 'cause it doesn't happen very often.
Running amok is a satisfying and awesome sight to see. The second layer. Having spent a number of years now reviewing other popular series, it's very interesting now for me to return to classic Dragon Ball to notice that flashbacks were used extremely seldom. So infrequently, in fact, that I can only really think of one example.
Yeah, there wasn't many flashbacks at all.
Right now, and that was the time Frieza thought of Bardock when he saw Goku for the first time. And that didn't even make proper use of all the options a flashback in a story can offer. This arc, in Super, however, does utilize them, and the benefits of doing so are explored in the third layer. This is the layer where I think most people place a large amount of their focus, and I honestly can't blame them. This is by far the most important layer for you to get the most out of the story and offers most of the narrative fun. For example, It offers the heaters another chance to demonstrate how conniving, opportunistic, and ruthless they
Yes,
truly
it does.
are.
Yep.
Emphasized brilliantly through a page turn from 37 to 38 in chapter 77. Bardock trying to buy Manito, Muesli, and Granola's lives a chance. Once his proposal is complete, boom! Alex shoots Granola's mom.
Yeah, it's just like, damn.
And that's not even to draw attention to the subtle hints to the dynamic Gas shares with his older brother Alec. Furthermore, and with the main cast, since the beginning of this arc, we've only really seen glimpses into this invasion of Bardocks. However, thanks to the scouter provided by the late Bardock himself, Goku and Granolah now have a person to thank for helping them continue to fight. In one light, we have Granolah learning the truth of who or what the Saiyans are, something not to fear or hate necessarily, as made evident by Bardock and now Goku and Vegeta, who have saved him time and again. This is in line with the themes of the arc itself, and we get Goku's inspiration for how he will eventually overcome his mental block with Ultra Instinct to some extent. Again, all wonderful creative choices that I love in this story. And heck, there's a specific scene that addresses this issue of Vegeta, Granolah, and Goku's, with pages 31 to 34 in chapter 83 showing a younger Gas ask Bardock if he's either fighting out of guilt to atone for his racist sins, or perhaps out of revenge. Unsurprisingly, these are the motivations that once fueled both Vegeta and Granolah, to which Bardock's answer actually reveals the lesson Goku needs to learn. It's a brilliant scene and one that succinctly answers the issues all of these protagonists have, resulting in perhaps the best page-turn Toyotaro has ever drawn, and that has been penned in Dragon Ball Super's manga run, in my opinion. It is utterly spectacular, with Goku and Vegeta having learned what they needed to from this journey, now standing in front of Gas, the strongest of the heaters, ready to put their newfound powers to the test as a team against this great threat. It's very satisfying. No longer trying to be something they're not or stuck in the past, both are now embracing who they are and living in the moment and thrilled.
So cool. So cool.
Gas versus the heroes, round 2. Here we are at the third and final fight of the arc. Well, sort of.
Kind of.
And the choreography
Yeah.
of this encounter is really fun, boasting some really nice clean paneling as well as some team-up moves between the two Saiyans we rarely ever see. Something I really enjoyed about this fight is made clear in chapter 85. Vegeta, after making the executive decision to take on Gas alone, erupts with joy when he gets attacked and takes damage because, as he says, his Ultra Ego form continues to evolve, but quips to Goku that his Ultra Instinct is the same as it has always been, and orders that while he, Vegeta, keeps Gas busy, Goku figure out his problem. In doing this, scene alone combines the strengths of two of my favorite Vegeta scenes. One being the confrontation with Android 19, where Vegeta continues to surpass the wildest parameters of the android's database, and Vegeta, of course, versus Kid Buu, where he shows just how incredible and tenacious he is fighting a much stronger opponent alone to buy time for Goku. Only difference being this fight has more tension and respect put on Vegeta's name than the Buu and Android fights offered, with the solution that Goku ultimately comes to being rather satisfying. It's not another transformation, it's not another technique, but instead a shifting in perspective. No longer fighting against his true nature to remain calm and unexcited in a fight, but instead embracing that aspect of him through the utilization of a previously known facade. And this fight is honestly bonkers, with Goku whipping out everything from old faithfuls to moves seldom seen in the series, with the fight excelling to new heights once Alec pushes Gas over the edge to burn away his youth for the sake of power, with his other brothers pointing out that Gas ain't looking too hot right now and is looking pretty ancient, to which Alec responds, not to worry, his power is very much intact. As if that was the only thing worthy of consideration. And for me, the paneling for this fight was honestly its strongest between chapters 85 and 86. There are some truly great layouts here that make use of the width and the height of the page, but to bring it back to the point, I like this fight and think is appropriate because it shows Goku and Vegeta fighting the physical embodiment of all their struggles they've had to overcome on this journey in the arc. And right before our eyes and theirs, we see exactly where that sort of toxic thinking leads you. And just as this battle roars onward with Gas singing the upsides of this choice, Granolah makes the save on Goku. And this is where the conclusion becomes the best ending to a fight Dragon Ball Super has delivered, in my opinion. Not just because I'm a fan of the story for all of the reasons I've mentioned, but it also manages to make use of every single member of the hero team, weak or not, without exception, to create the scenario that made for one heck of a finish. Granolah charges his finishing attack while Goku defends and distracts. However, eventually Goku is beaten down. About to be destroyed, Vegeta throws his body
everyone just keeps coming in.
Another last-ditch effort to draw his attention away, despite Vegeta himself about to fire, about to finish his charge, Goku's hidden power awakens once again like he did in the Moro arc to position gas away from the Earth. A safe target now presents itself. And this is my favourite part. Granola's eyes are still suffering from the effects of the last battle and can't aim correctly, creating the perfect opportunity for Oatmeal, the little loyal AI,
like everyone,
to chime in and offer his aiming assist services, culminating in one spectacular final attack from Granolah, the perfect person to fire this final blast. It's a breathtaking finish to what has ultimately been a near brilliantly structured arc. However, with that said, I still want to talk about one other aspect of it, and it revolves around the implications of Bardock's wish made on the Dragon Balls, courtesy of a night.
You can't
the wish
not
Bardock
mention
makes
this.
in Chapter 83 speaks perhaps to a theme echoed in this arc. One where you shouldn't have your attention focused on the past, where you shouldn't wish your life away for the sake of revenge, but to instead cherish the possibilities the future holds, to cherish what exists now. It's a beautiful sentiment and one that is felt throughout this arc to varying degrees that affects a host of other characters. However, my issue with it is divorced from the thematic significance, which it definitely has, and more so pertains to the potential implications it might have for the rest of the series narratively. I spoke about it in an older video closer to when these chapters came out, but the wording of Bardock's wish, whether it be Viz's translation saying he wishes his children thrive, or whether it be other accurate translations suggesting he wished his children to grow up healthy, both run the risk of implying that Goku didn't survive his childhood years in early Dragon Ball due to who he was, but instead
because of a wish.
wishes of his father enforced through magic, which robs, I think, that section, that early section of the story and impact it had for me at the very least. But I do, however, have hope. And to be honest, it more than likely will be something that will be addressed by Akira Toriyama eventually at some point down the road. Because if there's one thing I know about Akira Toriyama's writing, it's that he loves to keep things vague intentionally. Goku being an alien didn't contradict much of anything in the original material because it was kept vague. Beerus being the one to give the order to Frieza doesn't contradict anything.
Because everything was still vague.
Because, again, he kept it vague. There are plenty of instances in this story where Akira Toriyama wrote the story in such a loose and vague fashion because he either didn't know what to write there and then at the time, or intended on expanding upon it later. Either way, he kept it vague to not write himself into a corner within which there would be no return. And while this looks like it could be a potential issue that might impact the tension and achievement of Goku from childhood to adulthood, it's also entirely possible that Akira Toriyama intended for that wording to imply the safe passage of Goku from planet Vegeta to Earth, and that from that point on he'd be on his own. It's impossible to say at this point, as he has left it very vague, despite the fact that there are a number of panels where Goku and
Vegeta doubled down on it, man.
Aspect and brush it off as a joke. And look, whether you value this concern people have or not, whether you like this decision more than the consequences it may mean for early Dragon Ball, I think it should be safe to suggest that we all value different things about this series, and I hope I communicated those worries here today well enough for those that don't agree to potentially understand and empathize with it to a certain extent. But to close it off, I think one of the best choices this arc makes is by displaying Gas as an otherwise very sympathetic character. One whose only motivation is to do his brother proud and to not let his family down. To prove himself his worth. All the while Alec isn't concerned with that, and whom Gas trusts is willing to slowly watch his brother decay away. He's despicable. I mean, all he does is hide behind him. At least Frieza does things perfectly.
Just what?
Frieza is back in the mix, baby!
What?
And I love him so much it hurts my body. He gets some quippy lines perfect for his character. He looks terrifying, enormously more powerful thanks to some secret training in another world or dimension, making him perhaps now the strongest in this dimension. And the best part is that this was sort of foreshadowed in some respect in Chapter 82, where the Oracle Fish, after seeing Gas, doesn't recognize him. And
Oh, I never caught on to that, yeah.
at this revelation, suggesting that he wasn't the one the fish had
Was
reasons
talking
of,
about.
suggesting
Huh.
that he alone wasn't the strongest of
Wow,
the
yeah,
warriors
cool.
that Frieza was. And then Frieza just pieces out, leaving everyone shocked. It's perfect. I can't wait to see where Akira
Yeah.
Toriyama and Toritaro go with this. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like
So
and subscribe
sick.
for more like this. But until then, I've been Toy Not Mark. I'll see you all next weekend. Thank you so much for watching. It feels good to be back.
I wonder what the next week's video is going to be then. But yeah, good arc, good arc. I like that review. That's cool. Pointed out a few nice little moments I didn't really notice. Yeah, it probably makes sense that they definitely wanted to finish with Frieza in that aspect, because if the Oracle Fish, like I said, didn't recognise Granolah in his prediction of the strongest, then yeah, it makes sense. Good use of different characters. Yeah, the Wish was a bit, but everything else, it was a good story arc, man. It was enjoyable. And I really can't wait to see what happens next with Frieza. And yeah, what is Mark's next video going to be? Because he stopped doing Bleach. That was the whole Granolah arc. Is he starting a new series? Don't know, we'll find out. But until then, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is the lifestyle support channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, and leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch or discuss in future videos. So I'll see you guys next time.